Welcome back to the Silent Plus podcast. My name is Josh Watford, and sitting across the desk from me to my left is
John Nicholson.
And we do have a special, well, he's not even a guest anymore.
Not anymore, no.
But the summer Siloam intern to my right.
Round two.
Joseph
Zumwalt.
Joe Zumwalt is in the house with us.
Intern Joe.
And we
grateful to have you back for the summer, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really are. And he's already earning intern stripes. I tell you what, changing light bulbs, running errands, just doing the things.
I made him vacuum my office earlier.
Sweet, so. That's great.
For the record, I did not make him vacuum my office. That was a joke.
Okay. Well, I vacuumed this and third floor rugs.
I'm kidding, man.
Yeah.
So, third floor rugs.
We're grateful for you doing those things, but we're really excited about the ministry opportunities you're going to be a part of.
I'm excited too. I'm all ready for it. I've already dove in. I almost said dived in.
Dove in.
That's not a word.
Joe is making up words.
Doven is not a word.
Dove in.
No. You dove or
in.
dived.
Dived in.
Whatever you did in the past tense.
Into some of it already, which is with the start of, well, I guess my summer sermon series after we go knocking on doors in James, which you two were at.
Yep.
Had hats of class right here in the room.
There you go. Yeah. By the way, good commercial for any of y'all listening. Throughout the summer, Joe's going to be sharing and helping us walk through James around 5 o'clock on Sunday nights.
Yeah.
After we come back in from knocking on a few doors.
Yep.
So make your way out there. Bring somebody with you. It's good stuff. But yeah, we're excited to have you around, man. And he's going to be doing a good bit of preaching. That's one of the fun things with this series. I say fun things. It's an odd thing for me because I think I'm only preaching like 4 times this summer.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check the schedule.
I think it's 4 times if I remember right. But that's okay. Developing young preacher boys and stepping back and watching folks step forward. It's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, so we recorded the podcast, the intro podcast,
right? And
we had talked about doing other podcasts in that one sit down that we did, but then we realized, Joe is preaching faith this coming Sunday. Mm-hmm. This is how we're recording it. Joe has not preached the sermon yet.
No,
and so he's gonna kind of be thinking in real time about some of this.
Yeah, kind of.
And really what this means is that Josh, you and I can sleep through a sermon Sunday.
Yeah, because we'll already have.
I
already know everything we need to know. So,
because I think I'm gonna mention everything that didn't actually end up making it into the sermon. I had an original outline and was going with it, and then I felt the call, I think, to switch the passage I was going to use.
Okay, before we get too far down that rabbit hole, we need to back up because I don't want you to get to running down that path and us miss an important aspect. We need to hit a little bit of a review button, I think, because virtue it's just something we don't talk a whole lot about.
Yeah.
Even in the church, maybe especially in the church, we haven't talked a lot about it. That where we should have been. And so I think just helping anybody that's listening, maybe this is the first time you've encountered this, or maybe you've started on this journey and you're still trying to wrap your head around it. So, and frankly, I'm still doing some of the same. So I think it's a good moment for us to just to say, okay, here's what the lay of the land looks like. Mm-hmm. And we've mentioned the Venn diagram. We'll put that in the show notes again. We're trying to put that out there because I do think that's a really helpful
I do too.
tool to wrap my head around it. Pictures are always good. I liked Dr. Seuss because it had a lot of pictures in it. They help me to understand what we're talking about. But also just talking through it is helpful. So Josh, walk us through the big categories and the different virtues that fall in those categories, and then kind of how all that ties together.
Yeah, we'll be pretty brief. If you have not listened to the first podcast, I strongly encourage you to go back and listen to the intro to the Virtues podcast. But we're going to be covering 3 categories of virtues this summer. The first one is theological. Those 3 virtues under the theological virtue category are faith, hope, and love.
Right.
And most people are probably aware of those. They may not know that they're called theological virtues.
Right.
But they're aware of that triad of faith, hope, and love.
Thank you, Paul. 1 Corinthians 13.
1 Corinthians 13, 1 Thessalonians 1, Peter uses them, Book of Hebrews uses them. They are not just Paul, it's all over the New Testament. All right, so we'll walk through those, and then we'll move into what is called the cardinal virtues.
The hinge virtues.
The hinge virtues. Cardo meaning hinge, that's Latin for hinge, meaning there's I'm calling it a moral hinge on which our life will turn. Mm-hmm. All right, and those four are wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage.
Right. And temperance is sometimes called prudence.
No. Self-control. Temperance is sometimes self-control. Wisdom is prudence.
Wisdom, yeah.
And sometimes...
Right here, I'm catching...
And sometimes courage is called fortitude.
I'm getting clarity on this.
I like that word, fortitude.
Fortitude's a good word.
Yeah, we need to bring it back.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to us making that change as we preach to it. But yeah, so as you read through the literature, you may see wisdom called prudence and courage called fortitude.
And we're confident that our listeners are going to be reading through the literature because they're above average intelligent.
Yeah, I just posted out a recommended reading list that is semi-recommended. Like I said, there's some things that I would disagree with.
Always read with a critical eye.
Exactly. All right, so third category.
Great.
This is the one that trips, in my experience, has tripped people up, is the transcendental virtues.
It tripped me up.
Yeah. So
because
that is...
transcendental used to be associated with tripping out, druggy, hippie culture, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Transcendental meditation. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what your mind goes to?
Well, yeah, because that was the culture in which I grew up with back in the 80s, back long before you were born, probably before you were twinkle in your mom's eye.
Yeah,
but anyway.
Yeah. Back in the Pharaoh days was a long time ago.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So truth, beauty, and goodness are the three that are the transcendental virtues, and the way I like to explain it is that when we experience and participate in these virtues, they bring us up with them. So to be closer with God and be able to be above the noise and the racket of this world.
And they're available to all. And that's the one thing with these virtues is they're not exclusive to followers of Christ.
Right. I do believe that we can only truly experience them in the context of the theological virtues.
Did you see how I made that segue just so beautiful and easy for you guys?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm getting good at this podcast.
Yeah, and so that's but that's a real debate, right? And I think it's a worthy discussion. Can non-believers be wise? Right?
I think so.
Can non-believers have courage? Can non-believers participate in truth? And
here's how I would. Go ahead.
If the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, can anybody truly be wise if they don't fear the Lord?
Okay, let me frame it this way. Is a non-believer a bearer of the Imago Dei?
Yes.
These virtues are all shaped around that. They're helping us fulfill that. To fulfill the telos, there's the big word for the day again. What our design is, it's to help us fulfill that design component. So I think, yes, there are some times that non-believers do act courageously. I do believe that there are times that non-believers exhibit wisdom. I mean, even the early church fathers, and as they're accessing Aristotle and Plato and some of the other early philosophers, they're saying, hey, these guys, they weren't all wrong.
And so that was Augustine. We talked about this briefly, but I want to
get too deep in the weeds.
Yeah, but I want to make kind of a slightly different point about it. So Augustine is interacting with Aristotle when he comes to the cardinal virtues.
Right.
Aristotle says that wisdom is the foundation of all virtue, and Augustine says no.
Right.
It's love. And it's particularly love from God. So you would have different foundations for all of this. Even for non-believers, they're going to act courageously for different reasons than we would.
Yeah, they're running a different race than we are.
And they may stumble upon truth, but they don't have the spirit of truth within them. Right? So there is a certain aspect of their interaction with these virtues that they can have because they are created in the Imago Dei, the image of God.
Right.
However, it would be, even though we experience all these imperfectly, because I'm not saying we're perfect as in a 100%. We haven't arrived. Yeah, we haven't arrived. I don't know how to exactly say that, but they would be even more so brokenly and more imperfectly with a shaky foundation for those views. And
they may experience or express one of those virtues, but not have. They wouldn't have a clarity to understand or to process. Here's where this is leading me towards.
Right. And so that leads us to this theological virtue conversation.
There's a segue.
Both Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, they would say that a person could not have these theological virtues outside of them being gifts from God. Mm-hmm. And
I think we'll discover that Scripture is going to.
And so we need to clarify what we're talking about when we talk about these, because anybody can, have faith, right? Just in general. Anybody can have hope for something in general. And anybody can love, because again, we're created in the Imago Dei. We can do these things. But when we're coming to these theological virtues and talking about them as godly virtues, things that are given to us from God to be able to live correctly in this world, then we can't just talk about a generalized faith. We can't go up to just anybody and say, just have faith that it'll all work out.
Especially when faith has almost become an acronym for a well wish.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people say, or even hope. But all the hopes become this too. People are like, well, I hope that happens for you. And what they really mean is, well, it'd be nice if that happened for you. When having true hope and true faith is like, well, I not only believe this is going to happen for you, like I'm looking forward to it happening for you.
This is the way things really are already.
Yeah. Right. And so again, we're saying that these are truly foundational things for us. And with the object of these theological virtues always being God. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we can be hopeful people is because we ultimately hope in God.
Right.
The reason why we can have faith generally
is because God gives it.
Is because we have solid rock faith in God alone. And the reason we can love people and have a general love for things and other people is because of God's love for us and our love for God. So that's what I mean by these theological virtues being foundational for all the other virtues, and not even just the ones on the list. Like there are other virtues that we're not covering.
Right.
I think they're foundational for all of how we live and how we think and how we move about in this world. And so it's good for us to begin with these.
Right.
There's a reason why we're beginning with these and not the cardinal virtues.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that makes this a little more difficult or a little more harder to grab hold of is because if this were checklist, do these things, if you put coin A in slot A and press button B, you get result C, that's one thing. But this is more formation of shaping of character. It's a molding of our hearts so that they are responsive to God. I love what you said Sunday, Josh, that the virtues are preparing us for a heavenly life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's a great frame for us to, or a stack pole, or whatever you want to call it out there, way marker for us to be looking at these things. That it's not that we do this and the box is checked, but this is a way of life. This is something that is going to continue to shape us and form us and make us more of what we should be, what God has in fact created us to be in His image. So that brings us around to faith.
It does.
Help us out here, Joe.
Well,
all right, Joe, tell us what you weren't going to tell us.
Yes.
And then tell us what you are going to tell us.
Well, I just want to preface.
Yeah.
Preface. Yeah. Hey, my English is not always that good, even though it's the only language I speak. But
what was it you called it before?
preference.
Preference, yeah. It's not what you're
Preference.
choosing,
Yeah.
good or bad. This is the pre-material. This is the stuff before the stuff.
All right, before we get into the main of the conversation,
Here's the appetizer, folks. Go for it.
I think it's just good to start off with a biblical definition of faith, which just comes from Hebrews 11. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. I mean, you could have an entire sermon on
Absolutely.
one verse right there.
A lot of people have.
Yes, plenty of people have. And but I think you have to start there when you're talking about faith. Is that not only is faith in God about things that are actually real, which I think is the great divide between non-Christians and some people who think they're Christian, is that it's an assurance of things and a conviction about things that are actually there. And when you have those convictions and those assurances, there's a certain way you're going to live that out.
Yep.
So, I think you have to start with the definition. But past that, what I was kind of planning on preaching, what my first original outline was about, was first the definition of faith, this.
Right.
It was second, the dependence of faith on Christ. Like, our faith is literally in Christ.
Right.
It depends entirely on Christ and what He did. And it's hard to talk about faith without going there directly, too. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, I was going to talk about the dedication of faith.
And so you're not going to preach that?
I'm not going to preach
That alliterates in everything, man.
It alliterates in everything.
If your new outline does not alliterate, you're fired.
The new outline does not alliterate at the moment.
Yet.
We'll
get to
Yeah, we'll work on that.
If the Lord gives it to me, the Lord gives it to me. But
All right, so wait, let me back those up again. It's the, what were they?
Definition of faith.
Definition, dedication, and
Dependence was second.
Dependence, dedication, and dedication would come mostly from James. Funny enough, I know. That'll shock Josh and John.
Why are you going to start preaching from there? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but it's this. It's people often when they read James and when they read Paul, they think that they contradict each other.
Okay, total sideline here.
I know it's a sideline,
but I must say, what you did Sunday night was revelatory for me. I had maybe heard some of that. Just the puzzle piece had never clicked for me. But Sunday night, that puzzle piece of how James evidently is influencing Paul. Amazing.
I would almost like just reading Romans and James side by side. I almost think Paul is just going in and giving the theological reasons behind. But
I digress. But it was well done.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Back to this. They often think because what Paul says is that is not by works, it's by faith that we're saved. And what James says is that faith without works is dead. And so often people think that's a contradiction when it's just it's a more symbiotic relationship than they think. What it is that the faith that saves you, a living faith, is going to end up showing up.
Yeah. I think it's more than symbiotic. I think it's actually the same thing. They're just talking about it from two sides.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interlinking.
Right.
Almost like it's almost like
two different things.
Train cars when they have that clasp. It's almost like the two linkages there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a living faith will in fact live itself out. Because when you take
By
this
definition.
when you take this definition and you look at it, and it's a conviction and an assurance, and when you have that in what God says, you will end up doing what God says because you believe Him. I think Grudem has a wonderful definition of faith. His definition is a trust or dependence on God, in God, based on the fact that we take Him at His word and believe what He has said. Trust and dependence in God. And it's either in God or on God. Mm-hmm. And I think it pairs so well with this definition, because I think it gets at the underlying thing is that it's not only that you trust Him and that it's that you depend on it, and that you're going to end up believing what He said in such a way that you're going to live it out. And that's actually, I think, how faith is kind of looped in with the theological virtues, because the theological ones are how we relate to God, right?
Yep.
Is what you said. And faith, you have to have faith in God to be able to relate to Him at all. And you don't believe that he exists, and you don't trust or depend on him for anything, you won't relate to him at all, and everything else becomes void almost. And the great thing about faith is that God gives it to you, Christ sustains it, Christ perfects it, and you just get to be along for the journey, and you just have to keep it.
But then James comes along and says, if you're not doing something with it, it's dead.
Well, it's going to live itself out. That's one of the greatest things, is that you get to live out your faith. You don't just get to sit there and watch it. You just don't sit there and watch it grow, but you actually get to live in it. You were talking earlier about how it's not just Pastors better than that. It's more like a walk through the forest. And I know you'll enjoy this kind of analogy because you like hiking. Yeah. I don't necessarily like hiking, but I know John does. And when you're in the forest, you're going to experience all these other things, but you have to walk to get to these things. Yes. You have to walk to get to beautiful waterfalls. Sorry, not fountains.
They can be beautiful too.
You have to walk to get to lakes. You have to walk up mountains, and it's work. It's work, but it's when you get done with it, it's so worth it. So
that's not a bad, and you're right. I appreciate that analogy very well.
I can tell you stories.
That's good,
but it's just. I'm so glad our faith isn't just I believe that this thing is this way or could be this way, but it's this way. Now you get to live it out.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't live it out, there's almost no purpose.
Welcome to the adventure, he says.
Yeah, and it's one of the best things I think is that God prepares those good works for you to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they're done through faith, by faith, in faith, through faith through God, with the things that God equips you with, and they're all prepared by God, and all you have to do is say yes and do them.
Sounds like you've read Romans chapter 1, that we're justified from faith for faith, through faith to faith, all those things.
We're getting a lot of faith stuff at the moment.
That's okay.
You can imagine that.
Yeah, you should be.
It's good. But yeah, so that's kind of where I was going to go. But
so where are you going to go?
We're going to John 20.
Okay.
We're going to Thomas.
All right. I can't wait for that. All right. You want to give us a preview?
I'm praying for God right now, right? 'Cause
he needs a preview.
So I've got the basis of it down, but I was kind of shocked because I was in the car with JD going up to Huntsville on Monday, and we were coming back, and I was talking to him because I was a little nervous because I got 2 sermons to prepare for this week, and I got to teach kids this week, and so I was just like a little nervous because it's all on the same day.
Yeah.
So it's just it's more than I've ever done, and I want to do it rightly because, believe it or not, the teachers will be judged with greater strictness based on what they say. If you read James, and so I want to do it rightly. I want to do it for the right reasons. I don't know if you know this about me, but I can be prideful at times, and that is one of the biggest pitfalls in ministry that I've heard is pride, and especially preaching, because it's very easy to, especially people if it's a good sermon and people come up to you afterwards and they're like, that was a good sermon,
right?
And they say, good job, Joe, or good job, John. It becomes quickly, I did, so much work for all this, when it's God who gives the illumination, the Holy Spirit who convicts, and all these things. Because you have the most theologically sound, sermon in the world, but if the Spirit doesn't convict or illuminate, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, it's a good paper, but outside of that, who reads papers?
But compliment I always got was, you'll make a good preacher one day.
Yeah, but and of course you don't want to do badly, so it's nice to hear those things. But so I was like, I wasn't complaining or anything. I was just like, I got all these things coming up, and he was like, well, what are you gonna preach on? And I was just going through it with him. I was like, this is what I think I'm gonna do. I still need to pray about it. And no joke, there was like a 5-second lull or something, and I prayed for 5 seconds, and then about 30 seconds later, because I've been reading through the Gospels, one Gospel a day, I did it for like 6 days, and then I quit, and I was sad that I was doing it, so I picked it up again.
Yeah.
The four Gospels 6 times.
Okay.
I did one Gospel one day, one the next day, one the next day, one the next day, and then I did
then
2.
You had a revelation.
I know, I was just picking at you.
And literally a verse popped up in my head, and I wasn't even sure, I didn't even remember which Gospel it was from, what was the surrounding context, and it was do not disbelieve, but believe. And I was like, okay, God, well, we're going to look at that in the morning. So I did yesterday. And I was like, well, it's John 20. And then I was like, it's Thomas. And one of the most interesting things, I think, is you know how John has that weird, here's why this book is written?
It's not weird.
And it's in a weird spot.
Yeah, it's
not the end. It's not all the way at the end.
Not quite, yeah.
But I think it has wholly to do with Thomas, his story. Because Thomas disbelieved and then believed, and then Christ says, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe, and then he puts it right there.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those unfortunate verse chapter breaks.
Sure.
Or like, you know how they have those paragraphs and then they have the title. I think it's one of the unfortunate ones because I think it combines so well. So we're gonna go through that story. We're gonna read the definition just because I think it's so important when talking about faith.
Man, I'm fired up for Sunday already.
And I think
let's go get it.
I think we're gonna go with this. Might be alliterated, but it'll be definition, disbelief, belief, and then it basically will be the gospel. It'll be a gospel sermon.
Do a Josh and make up one like duh belief.
No. But I think
I'll never forget that.
Jesus,
man. That was so good.
I'm coming back.
He's coming. That was
of course,
so good.
by the time this one's out, people will probably heard the sermon.
Yeah, ideally.
But I think that's what it's going to be on. I think that's where the Lord's leading.
So y'all are getting a little inside ball on sermon preparation and what this looks like and the mess that it can be. But it's great, man. But all right, so I've got to ask this question, didn't you? I told you, I warned you ahead of time.
You did.
So what? So what if we do have faith? What if we do begin? What practical difference does that make in Joe Zumwalt's life?
The so what is simple enough it can be said in one word.
Say it.
Everything.
Now listen, that's kind of like
That's
praying for
cheating.
that's like praying for all the missionaries. I mean, it's nice that you do that, but
No, so here,
put me some handles on what everything looks like.
what everything looks like. Everything in your walking with God requires faith. Every good step requires faith. Every sin is unbelief. I think it's unbelief.
Interesting way to categorize sin,
but
yes.
If it's not done in faith, it's sin.
Yeah.
If it's not done in
Paul says that in Romans 14.
Yeah. So here's the thing: you have to trust God and trust what He says the entire way to live righteously, right? It's to
Hebrews says without faith it's impossible.
Yes, it's literally impossible without faith. It's all grounded in faith, and it's even given by God. But here's what I mean when I think every sin is unbelief. It's either unbelief that it's not important enough in that moment, or you don't believe it's truly wrong. And you're not trusting in what God says and what God has, that it is in fact better to not sin. That, especially as Christians, it's almost worse to sin if not, because
I think it's
we've been given
Hebrews is telling us, yeah.
We've been given everything to overcome sin. I think that's very clear. Do we do that? I don't think there's a single Christian alive who does it. But more than conquerors are we. And I think whenever we sin, we allow a little bit of disbelief to come in there.
It's interesting. Interesting concept.
Yep.
All right. Here's some Greek homework where when he tells Thomas to stop. What is it? What's the phrase?
Don't disbelieve.
Don't
Don't disbelieve, but believe.
Check your Greek verb tenses there, because I've got an imagination about what they mean. That could be an interesting.
I wish I'd taken Greek.
Well, there's some resources that you can get hold of there that may help you.
Blue letter Bible, here I come.
But that's it's so foundational for everything that we do, and it does it.
I'm out on me for saying everything.
I know. I was just trying to draw you out, because it's foundational for everything that we do, every decision that we make, every moment of our life is really influenced and can be shaped by this if we allow it. And so often I see those things in hindsight. I see them after the fact. Oh, that's where God was at work, and that's where God was trying to lead me, and here's where I was being a bullheaded whatever. Or, wow, it sure was nice that I did follow along. Well, I'll give you an example. Yesterday was just a wash for me. I had things to do on Tuesday. Okay, this is Wednesday when we're throwing this podcast down. But my entire morning was eaten up by interruptions. Some on the street, some folks that I just encountered. And that was fine. Folks that dropped by. whatever. I even went to lunch thinking, okay, I'll go to lunch, hit the reset button. But there at lunch was somebody else that needed to talk to Pastor about something. So there was nothing. I managed, my production for yesterday was getting 3 thank you cards, postcards no less, small, short notes, 3 notes written and out the door. That was my production quotient for yesterday.
Were they readable?
And I don't know. But I was hugely frustrated. But then, this morning, as I'm processing all this, I realized that was a God ordained moment. That was a God appointment. That couple that I met, and it was God all the time. And the reason I was so exhausted and so frustrated was because I was trying to walk in my strength rather than walk in faith that God, this is, all right, here we go.
Yep.
So, faith.
So faith?
It impacts the little parts of our day, but it also impacts the big picture of our lives.
Absolutely.
Because our lives are made up of our days.
You're starting to sound like a preacher.
Well, yeah.
He might be one in his lifetime.
I've read the end of Job. Man, I love the end of Job because he died full of days, it said. Not full of years, days. Full of days. So it's all these little moments of faith that make the difference and guide us toward God. Come on.
Yeah.
Take us home, Josh.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what to add to all that. I've just been listening to y'all. This has been great. You know, I'm very thankful for y'all and thankful for Joe for putting in the yeoman's work on faith for us.
I was kind of worried when you guys told me I was doing faith. I was like, "There's so much."
Worried? Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it is a pretty broad.
What are you not talking about?
Yeah.
How much wish you had more than 20 minutes to preach?
That's the question. What do you not talk about whenever you talk about this? Because there is so much to talk about. Well, I'm excited to hear from Joe on Sunday about John 20.
I'm
excited to hear from the Lord.
And then keep digging on Sunday night in James 1 with him.
Right. And then for those of you who are listeners, by now, you know, if you're plugged in with this, you should have a virtue journal in hand, and we want to encourage y'all to utilize that. Hope you're reading a little bit along with Mere Christianity, because that's going to be a wonderful companion read, I think. I think it dovetails really nicely with all of these virtues. And then Josh has put out those resources. And there'll be some other things that come along. We've got a chart or two that we'll throw out there for you that may help you process some of these things. But we want you to think through them and help us to think through them. We would welcome, feedback and conversation and what about this and those kinds of things, because like I've said, Josh, I'm still thinking through these things.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to work out what these are. And I have an idea I will be doing that for a long time. But I'm really grateful for these conversations we'll be having over the next several weeks, and hopefully other conversations we'll have with some folks in the life of our church and maybe community with this.
All right. Fantastic. Well, we'll come back next time with hope.
Yeah. In the meantime, go be virtuous.
Absolutely. See y'all next time.